Yet again, another Trump attorney may need her own attorney for allegedly lying for Trump. This time it's Christina Bobb, a name that may not ring a bell unless you watched One American News Network, one of the biggest purveyors of the big lie.
It's becoming glaringly apparent that Donald Trump absolutely crushed Joe Biden in the election. The Democrats and never-Trumpers installed the Dominion voting system in key locations with the intent to rig elections. And it's possible they've rigged elections in the past.
Wow. That was Bob, a former host for OANN. Of course, nothing she said there was true, but it does explain a lot about what this person has been up to lately. More on that in a minute. Bob is now a senior Trump attorney with a lot more name recognition, but not in the way you'd want to write home about. New details have emerged about Bob and the Trump legal team's failure to fully comply with a subpoena for documents marked as classified. The New York Times reports that back in June, Bob signed a statement attesting that all the sensitive material in Trump's personal possession had been returned. Her statement was attached to the DOJ's filing on Tuesday. In it, the lawyer wrote that based upon the information that has been provided to me, there had been a diligent search and all documents responsive to the subpoena were being returned. But law enforcement officials soon developed evidence that that statement was untrue. Now, none of this is surprising, given Bob's appearance on Fox News after the Mar-a-Lago raid. This is what she had to say when directly asked if the documents Trump was hanging on to were related to nuclear capabilities with national security implications.
I don't believe they were, and if they thought they were...
Well, do you know for a fact? Do you know for a fact they were? Have you spoken to the president about it?
I have not specifically spoken to the president about what nuclear materials may or may not have been in there. I do not believe there were any in there. The legal team had done a very thorough search and had turned over. We'd been very cooperative with the Biden administration and the DOJ and turned over everything that we found that we had. So it's my understanding on very good belief based on a thorough investigation that there was nothing there.
When Laura Ingraham is the voice of reason, well, didn't age well, did it? Back with me, Melissa Murray and Joyce Vance. And Joyce, I want to start with you on this. You know, Christina Bobb did make these attestations that they'd given everything back on June 3rd. That was not true. Could she be in some legal jeopardy?
She could be in legal jeopardy. She submitted this signed certification to the government, and it's not true. The question is whether she knew it wasn't true and made a willful false statement, which could subject her to prosecution, quite frankly, for making a false statement to the government. So if you're the government, what you need to test here is her knowledge. Was she relying on someone else who told her that there was a complete search that revealed nothing, or is she, in fact, the person here who's trying to tell the lie? And, Joy, what that ultimately raises is the specter of whether she might decide to cooperate with the government in this investigation.
Because wasn't she, Joyce, to stick with you for a minute, wasn't she the person who was kind of the person of record that was in charge of the records? Wasn't that her function?
It was. In these situations, when a subpoena is issued for records, you'll often see an entity appoint a custodian of records. And so in this case, instead of going in front of the grand jury and going through the motions of saying, here are the documents you've subpoenaed, I'm returning them to you, she was permitted to submit this certification in lieu of testimony under oath. So she is the person, in essence, responsible for those documents.
And it's not just her, Melissa. So Evan Corcoran and Christina Bobb, these are two of the people that are under scrutiny about this failure to comply with this subpoena. This was a legal subpoena requiring them to turn over documents. Hugo Lowell of The Guardian has tweeted about another attorney named Alina Habba. Alina Habba told the New York State Attorney General in May that she personally searched for materials in that investigation and searched all over Mar-a-Lago, raising the possibility that she may have come across classified documents without a clearance, making her a potential witness in the DOJ case. One more item. Lawrence Tribe has tweeted about some of these folks, and he says if Trump's lawyer, Evan Corcoran, and his custodian of records, Christina Bobb, are charged with obstruction of justice, as DOJ's midnight 8:30 filing implies they should be, the question is, will they lie again, or will they point their fingers at their boss, Donald Trump? What do you make of this? Because this is multiple attorneys, all of whom potentially could become witnesses.
Well, I've said it on this channel before, and I'll say it again. MAGA now stands for making attorneys get attorneys. Like, all of these people need to have legal counsel going forward. Joyce is exactly right. There's incredible exposure here to criminal liability, certainly for all of the individuals who have testified in some form or another that they were involved in dealing with these records and the securing of these records and in the effort to collect them and return them to the FBI and the National Archives, and that when they came to do the search of the property, they found twice what they thought they would find because it was twice what they'd been told by these lawyers. So the real question here, as Joyce says, is the question of knowledge and intent. Did this happen inadvertently without their knowledge? They think that they were representing the truth, and in fact, this was not the case. Were they misrepresented or misinformed? All of this is going to be incredibly important, but all of this suggests that these are really likely targets for the government to probe as they seek witnesses, cooperators, as they go forward in determining whether they're actually going to bring criminal charges against someone higher up, maybe even the former president.
And I wonder about timing, Joyce, because there has been a lot of talk and a lot of sort of anger, rumbling anger out there, that it feels like Maine Justice would not go after Donald Trump before an election. He's not up for any office. He is not on the ballot anywhere. But there's still a sense that there would be hesitancy to launch any sort of a prosecution against him before the election is happening. Do you think that the same would go for any of these attorneys? Because essentially they'd be one click away from him. And do you think that it would make sense for Justice, the Department of Justice, to hold off on any kind of a prosecution related to this case, potential Espionage Act, potential obstruction of justice, illegally retaining government records, and push that back until after the election? Do you think that's likely, and do you think it should be done?
DOJ's guiding principle here is that it's not supposed to take any action in its criminal cases or even in civil cases that could influence the outcome of an election. And so typically what that means is you don't take overt steps in an investigation, you don't indict closer to, it depends on what office you're in, 60 days, maybe 90 days out from an election. Trump has really stretched the criminal justice system out of shape here, and it's because he has so successfully imposed this narrative of political witch hunt on everything that looks at scrutinizing his behavior. So I think he puts Merrick Garland in a difficult position where Garland might not want to force the Justice Department to just take unnecessary hits for engaging in political behavior close to an election. I don't think there's anything that says he can't indict, certainly not the lawyers involved or even the former president if he makes a decision to indict. There's nothing that says that they can't continue with a very aggressive investigation. But they may decide that it's the better part of wisdom, given the mood in the country, to not do anything that could be viewed, rightly or not, as influencing the election. And frankly, the 60 days or so that are involved won't really impede the investigation much. They have some documents to go through, some follow-up work that they can do quietly and be ready to go on the other end.
Yeah, and the election is 69 days away, just for those who are counting. And I mean, I think the most damning thing for Trump is this. It is this picture. It is seeing these classified markings plainly all over these documents. Trump knew what he had. This is not a secret. And Melissa, I'll go to you on this. I mean, it is not as if he can pretend that he didn't understand what he had, that he had classified secrets in his possession, in his office, not locked in a room, in his office. So given the strength of the evidence and the strength of this filing from the DOJ today, how likely do you think it would be that Donald Trump will get, even from a judge he appointed, this special master, which would only be a delay because they've already gone through these documents?
Well, Judge Cannon had indicated that she was inclined to appoint the special master, but obviously that was before the government had filed its response. And again, the government really did a lot of talking in its filings and certainly in that pictorial evidence that was presented. And I think Judge Cannon has a lot to think about going into this hearing tomorrow. Again, the whole idea of a special master seems redundant, a waste of judicial resources when this review has already happened. And when the government has rightly pointed out that further review by an additional party would perhaps compromise national security, this special master would have to receive much of the security clearance that many of the FBI officers have had in reviewing this. And more importantly, because this is a review that would be going on within the executive branch, the whole idea of executive privilege, which is what the special master would be appointed to review on, really isn't an issue at all. So this may be a non-starter, and she may start over and just squash what she initially decided to do as a matter of optics.
And I will remind our audience that we are waiting for Donald Trump's response to this really rather epic filing today from the DOJ. That is supposed to come before 8 o'clock, so about half an hour more. We have to wait to see what his lawyers will have to say. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Melissa Murray, Joyce Vance, always a pleasure. Thank you both very much. And